The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. This webinar is the launchpad for the Digital Month program presented to you by Accenture on techgig.com. Digital Month is a perfect opportunity for you to learn the latest trends and technologies in digital. It will bring to you various webinars, contests, and panel discussions. While the potential for learning and value add to your career is huge, it also gives you a chance to win exciting gadgets by taking part in the contest on digital. And that's not all. You could also win gift vouchers by merely referring your friends and colleagues to participate in the activities of the Digital Month. The topic of today's session is Testing in the Digital World. And our guest speakers today are Vijay Krishna BS, he's the VP, and Venugopal RK, he's the Managing Director with Accenture Digital. Vijay Krishna, lead for mobility testing global offers and India delivery in Accenture, is responsible for product offer development related to connected world test services, mobile application tests, and operator acceptance testing. He has over 15 years of experience in focused on mobile technologies and embedded products. He has significant experience in product management, product marketing, and development of connected devices. He now spends considerable time on offer development, innovation, and digital technologies. His areas of interest include connected products and mobility. Venugopal is the offering lead for digital testing and is responsible for driving innovation, creation of assets and capabilities within Accenture to build, integrate, test and deliver testing solutions across mobility, interactive and analytics. Until recently, he has been the offering lead for mobility software services. In this role, he has led several strategic assignments in consulting and delivery to leading operators, OEMs, and semiconductor clients. He has been the architect of the Accenture Text Framework, ROSA, Remote Offshore Simulate and Automate, to test and deliver mobile software including applications for banking, retail, insurance, and health industries. He brings over 22 years of experience in various roles including strategy, delivery, consulting, solution architecture, offerings, new business development, customer and partner management across mobility, telecom, aerospace, and plant automation. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speakers. Over to you, Venugopal.
Hey, thank you very much, Aradhana. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. I see over 100 of you have joined the call, and thanks very much for taking the time. It is a reflection of the fact that it's in interesting times that we are in, as most of you may have heard the word digital, and that's probably why you joined us. So quickly, just to understand, there have been times in the past when you have seen technology driving the growth in the industry, and if you see right now, it's in some sense bringing together several technologies that have reached certain level of maturity, and lots of interesting ideas are coming together. So when we talk about digital, we're actually talking about bringing all these technologies together that are changing people's lives, customers, industries, companies, products, and services. So these technologies could include anything from mobile computing, social media, business analytics, big data, cloud, sensors, networks, and several other things that are around this. So these technologies coming together in the last 5 years have enabled a lot of us to go online much faster and do several things and changing businesses, it's something that was possibly not viable in the past have sort of become a lot more viable. Just look at how these things are changing our lives. You see, a lot a lot of companies, high-performing companies, have sort of taken the early path of bringing together these technologies, hiring specific talent, because it's definitely, if it's a bank or a retail or an energy company, there is a need to understand technology and how does it enable bringing together social, mobile analytics, cloud, and all that. So it is important. We can see over 70% of such high-performing companies go very early and have hired people and started bringing these things to deliver value into their businesses. So just to take a quick view, okay. So Vijay, can we go on to the next slide? Hello? Yeah. So like I said, it's about bringing so many things together: mobile, API, apps, big data, security, and all that. So this is all. It's a big challenge for any of us coming from one side of the industry to understand what everything else means. And once you have an understanding, there are huge possibilities of delivering business value. So if we look at what this is actually meaning in terms of information sharing, it's you can see, just to give a view, there are about 2.4 billion people connected to the internet actively at any point in time. There are 38,000 photos being shared. There are 3.5 million likes on Facebook, 4 million searches on Google, and the list goes on. So that's one view of how enormously things have changed in the last 2 to 3 years. And if you look at what does it mean look at it from a software perspective, Android, for example, had about 12 million lines of code. Facebook now has about 61 million lines of code. And now if you see, the connected car has about close to 100 million lines of code. So there's a lot of effort being put in to bring all these technologies together. And this is all leading to what does it mean to all of us, especially from a testing perspective. So we will spend a lot of time today's call in understanding what are the new challenges and how do we go about it. So in a broad sense, this is all about the apps running on several devices, increasing the number of interactions that we are able to see, and bringing in connected products. It's about machine to machine, and that's what we're going to see, wearables, wristbands, and stuff like that. So it's about bringing many things together. So as much as it may appear very broad-based, a lot of the technology that we see enabling mobile payments, enabling even for example, Brazil probably is, at this point may not be a right example, but you'd have heard about the hydration levels of players being monitored through the sensor of the bottle, and the coach being able to take decisions on how he should help his players, manage their energy levels well through the game, and now something to that effect will slowly percolate into our own lives, and it basically will drive a lot of health related decisions. So there are similar examples that you would find, and what does it mean in terms of delivery from a testing perspective is what we would see when we go through the rest of the session today. So Vijay, can you go on to the next slide? Yeah. So this is a more objective view of what do we have in store. There are over 200 odd billion sensors. That means all devices, including your washing machines to geysers to cameras to everything, are actually becoming more and more intelligent. Their locations are known. When they sense movement, they sense change, energy, light energy is controlled, heat and sound are all we are able to monitor all these and take intelligent actions. devices that we wear, devices in cars and anywhere and everywhere are all communicating. So there are over 25 billion devices that we can expect in the next 5 years. Networks, which is going to be the most important thing, especially from a testing perspective. Short range and long range wireless. We're going into 4th and 5th generation technologies, enabling mobile payments through NFCs and stuff like that. So this is the technology that is enabling the connected world, and the enterprises are making use of it by the talent that the new talent that they've brought in, and looking at building APIs that will expose the enterprise would intend to expose to developers to build newer solutions, newer applications that people in B2B and B2C world can really use. Applications are expected to grow, and all this means that there is a huge amount of data that needs to be processed intelligently. A lot of predictive analysis is being done to use and delivering a lot of value into the world. So what does it mean to the world in general? So can you go to the next slide? Hello?
You should see that now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So going digital basically means there are connected devices, there is a huge amount of data that is being available, and there is a quantum jump in terms of online sales. So it's basically driven by the technology growth on machine to machine, the expectation that everyone is going to be always on. There are multiple platforms on devices. That's from a connected devices perspective. Since there is a huge amount of data that's available, there is a need to understand what kind of information filters that need to happen to use this information intelligently, how to deal with unstructured and real-time data and analyze it in real time and make use of it in business decisions. So all this helps you to improve the customer experience, increase the economic value. Yeah. So this is basically what we expect in terms of going digital, bringing together the technology growth on connected devices, the data that is being available, all leading to improved online sales, and then this is going to be not in a percentage growth, but in the next 5 years, I haven't seen predictions that are 5 times over in less than 5 years in any kind of technology growth that we've seen in the past. So it is obviously going to be challenging times, and so let's look at what it means in terms of challenges for testers in the connected world. The next slide, Vijay. Yeah. So the challenges that we spoke about just now is that enterprises are beginning to rely a lot on new technology as they go digital. It means mobile devices, bringing up the applications, enabling the backends to deal with it, the security that we need to put in place, taking care of performance and interoperability of all the devices and the backends and stuff. The 4th and 5th generation wireless technologies, for example, are helping to deliver differentiated services to the employees, partners, and customers. So there is a need to understand what these means to large enterprises. Long-term evolution, as you may all know, is giving huge data throughput, and that's enabling rich multimedia and content. You can buy stuff while you watch television. You can use a lot of multimedia content to drive a lot of sales. NFC is enabling secure communication, so it makes a lot of transactions safe plus much faster, but it adds to the complexities of testing. If you look at the devices, the operating systems that are coming into play, so it's something that the world has already seen. In the past, when you had to test an application on the desktop, it was obviously complex in terms of the user scenarios and in terms of interoperability with the backend, testing for latency and all that. But once people started using mobile devices and tablets, it brought in a new challenge. How do you optimize testing? It brought in the aspect of the network. Are you handling the network conditions, and are applications doing graceful exits? Are you having hackers on mobile devices? How are you taking care of what challenges and dangers that they pose, and things like that? Obviously, automation with so many different devices is going to be a huge challenge. It's already a challenge, and there is a limitation in terms of reusability of scripts if you build them to test mobile applications, and you need to consider that aspect when you factor in a testing team and test infrastructure that you need to build mobile applications and devices. How do you use analytics? How do you use people using mobile devices, and how do you use the information and sort of enable crowd testing? These are some things that we have sort of thought through, and we'll be talking about it in the next couple of slides. This is about what challenges that we face, primarily from enabling technologies in the communication space. And if you look at this from an analytics perspective, there is an additional challenge that you can see. Vijay, can you go on to the next slide? Vijay, can you go to the next slide?
It should be on now. It should just give it a minute to refresh. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, given all this, bringing together the mobility, the analytics, the cloud, and the data, and the social networks, enterprises are now having to use advanced digital analytics to understand the needs of the market much better and to deliver personalized customer solutions. So all this requires huge amount of testing. So on live customers, optimization. Many of you may have heard of multivariate testing. So it's not essentially the traditional testing, but using digital optimization, for example, having different schemes of navigation, colors, organization of information on web pages, and testing out what kind of preferences people have, what leads to better sales, what kind of issues that we face, and these are being addressed through digital optimization. And in the world of Internet of Things, we see devices are constantly talking to each other and taking decisions on our behalf. So it basically means that when you build business contracts, and even for testing contracts, you see that there's a need to rewrite how business principles are applied to these things. It basically helps. So there is a challenge in terms of how do you have objective metrics, and how do you get into outcome-based business models to drive value into these contracts. So test organizations on one end have to stay abreast with the technology that's changing on the device, in the cloud, and everywhere, but at the same time evolve new mechanisms, new strategies, and infrastructure and processes that are essential to take on the challenge in the digital world. So that's broadly what I had to share in terms of the challenges that we see from a testing perspective. And I will let Vijay take you through how what's our point of view in terms of addressing these challenges. So Vijay?
Thanks, Venu. Hello all, it's a pleasure presenting this. With that, let me kind of, we've seen the kind of challenges. It's definitely exciting time for the testers. Like Venu mentioned, it's not just the transformation within the technology that we have seen. Some of you would have seen such transformations earlier, when the mobile technology picked up, or I'm not sure if any of us were around when we saw the PC kind of transformation. But definitely, exciting part as testers for us is all of this is going to happen in the next 4 to 5 years, hitting the end clients, which means all of our R&D activities are in the next 2 to 3 years. So that's why I say it's very exciting as testers. I want to kind of take this, share this point of view with you, what you see on the screen, in terms of broadly 3 categories within the digital world. One more from a mobile devices and various wearable products point of view, other from the traditional interfaces and rich media based screens. It could be digital TVs, it could be our traditional desktops, and then because of all these sensors and accessibility and interfaces, the large amount of data that it's creating and how we socially interface with all of them. Now, within, if I look at from a connected devices point of view, interoperability is turning out to be one of the key areas in terms of as testers to play our role. It's simply we're talking about multiple different standards, multiple different ecosystems coming together, which probably never interacted in the past. For example, today there's need for banks to be a lot more aware of traditional systems, which probably only a telecom operator worried about a few years back. And the other key aspect, the moment all of these varying types of interfaces, like when you mentioned, straight from NFC to various cellular interface technologies to the newer short-range, long-range interfaces coming up, we're already hearing about weightless projects. Each of these, as they come in, it is still the responsibility of the service provider to ensure an end-to-end service guarantee, which means testing now has to think interoperability, what we thought 4 years back, into at least 4 times. Now, having said that, from a connected device testing point of view, if you look at from the rich media that we need to look at, there's hardly any website today which is probably not responsive. So most of them have already moved there, if not they're moving there. So ability to provide customer a similar experience across various types of devices. It could be various types of implementations. You've seen clients implement native apps or hybrid apps or simply the web-based applications, but nevertheless, there is sufficient rich media coming across all of them. This automatically requires having test strategies and approach where you test across various platforms. It could be various OS versions, various browsers, various browser versions within, and then automatically comes the need to automate. You're simply looking at a combination of at least 15 to 16 primary combinations within the platforms and the versions, and then innumerable number of secondary combinations in terms of changing form factors, changing screen resolutions, and many. So automation is a driving factor, and automation not just in terms of execution, but automation in terms of creating the test scenarios itself. Can we automate the process of looking at a requirement and generating test scenarios or test cases which would apply or work across these various platforms? And the need to be not just functional, but look at non-functional testing. Users are extremely sensitive now in terms of the user experience. There are examples like people would spend about 22 minutes on an average on an app about 3 years back to all the way up to about 140 minutes per day being spent currently on an app. So which simply means the engagement with the user is so very high. Even if there were a few kind of issues to the users a few years back, they probably never got noticed, but simply because of the time a user engages, the applications need to be way too compelling, not just in terms of the user experience, but also in terms of the performance. With that, and the innumerable number of interfaces that these are getting into, looking at data security and user privacy from a test perspective. Now, these are very, very critical elements what today clients consider important before they go into any deployment. And each of these tests, as examples that we spoke about in terms of either the connected devices or the rich media applications, if you see, are needing multiple different tools. There's no one tool that would fit all. So at least we are talking about 6 to 8 different tools which testers use today, build expertise across these platforms and tools. And when they bring together in an environment such that they can truly test the end-to-end service, it becomes critical to have dashboards which are intelligent enough for a tester to know across all these different applications and interfaces. Now, having seen these two aspects, if you look at some of the other channels, simply the amount of data that gets generated, we're looking at users engaging across multiple channels, and obviously the key is to look at how we can provide a very similar experience to them, even not just across channels, but even when they move from one channel to the other while interacting. We're talking about data coming much more faster, data coming a lot more real time, and then how do we ensure that we test across these various data available, both in terms of again, from a security of the data and the privacy protections. So key is, as testers, I think we have a large role to play across these systems, simply because the requirement now is to look at an end-to-end service guarantee. With that, let me take you to what kind of test strategies one should look for, what are the kind of processes that are getting prominent out there in those areas, and what kind of infrastructures are we looking at to enable these test strategies. Now, of course, given the time, this is just a very high-level view of the various test strategies and processes, but I'm sure several of you are engaged in detailing out each of these blocks itself to a very large extent. If I look at from a test strategies point of view, what we are looking at is all the software is being treated as applications. So which means every new platform release, every new content, every new software that goes out would be treated from an application point of view to ensure, from a customer experience point of view, the strategies need to understand how we are engaging with multiple different standards. I'm talking here all the way from a web W3C standard adherence to mobile long-range communication standards to short-range various communications. Each of these kept in mind when we define the test strategies such that it ensures end-to-end coverage. Of course, this also means data sources from multiple different locations. Now, the key factor that would define the success of these strategies, we believe, will be the economic value they would drive. What I mean by that is, most of these products or solutions, as they get defined, today they are getting developed and tested simultaneously. Lot of the times, product shelf lives are less than a few months and no more a few years. So given that, how do we define the strategies such that the product continues to evolve, the interfaces continue to evolve, the product provides the scalability and yet provide the economic value that we would do in terms of applying a particular method to test them. Keeping those in mind, some of the innovations that are happening within processes are crowdsourcing, simply enabling various types of testing. Now, of course, there is considerable amount of debate what to kind of crowdsource, what not to, but definitely from a testing point of view, we are seeing quite a lot of innovations where platforms enable retaining some of the core within the organization while still enabling significant amount of the field testing done through the crowd. So platforms and processes enabling those. Ability to do some of the simulation or emulation based testing upfront while the rest of the system is getting defined while rest of the interfaces are getting defined in the ecosystem, how we can continue to simulate various of these interfaces and test them to be market ready. Analysis of these use cases, simply the kind of combinations, for example, Venu earlier mentioned, for a connected car, we're talking about like 100 million lines of code. Now, for a complexity like that, how do you arrive at focusing on certain elements of test which are high risk right in the beginning? How do you intelligently analyze your various use cases such that you are ensuring a compelling user experience even before user experience sees all of those use cases in the field? And of course, given any process, it has to be a value-driven test. Now, given these kind of test strategies and processes, what kind of test infrastructure are we looking at? Now, quite a lot of remote-enabled testing is getting prominent, not just enabling crowd kind of testing, but also for an in-house testing to enable quite a lot of machine-to-machine interfaces, for example. Ability to automate across multiple platforms, for example, build a test scenario for a given interface, given platform, and reuse pretty much a lot of those test scripts across various platforms and interfaces. And then cloud-based itself enabling testers across each of these cycles from strategy to process. Now, the key, I would say, is how do we leverage all of these or continue to innovate across these three cycles of strategy, process, and test infrastructure to deliver quality, consistency, irrespective of the channel customer chooses to access the service from. With that, if we look at innovation, not just across the three aspects that we spoke, today there have been this app testing ecosystem. We've seen a lot of innovations happen individually within mobility, within analytics, within interactive, for example. I think it's time for testers to gear up now to look at innovation across these various interfaces. For example, innovation between various analytics of test data looked at before deploying any of the test services, let's say on a mobile platform. So there is there's an emergence of new test experts required, focusing purely on performance and security. There's need to look at data scientists today when you look at certain mobile deployments, for example. Similarly, if you look at on the other interfaces, device and application test experts no more are just standalone UI-based application testers, but have a lot more knowledge on the platform itself from a device perspective. Ability to think about the multiple different variants across form factors, across screen resolutions, across operating systems, and test experts who are able to think through across these multivariant platforms. Given this, I think it's definitely key to see, as we are seeing within Accenture, that testers are expected to now play a much more active role in the digital domain right from the beginning of the value chain, where we start defining requirements to where we start defining the product. Test engineers getting engaged in defining how should the test strategies be, how are we going to ensure successful deployment of the solutions in the market. So to kind of conclude on what we have shared so far on the various challenges that we see and some of the ideas in terms of how we see these getting rolled out, definitely the key aspects for a world-class test organization would be for now test professionals to look at multiple disciplines, collaborating across both offshore, nearshore, and onshore in terms of bringing the right expertise across each of these locations. Dedicated test center of excellences focusing on certain specialized areas, not just in a particular digital area, but applying those in the industry context. Ability to automate across various standards, across various interfaces, leveraging each of these APIs, not just from a functionality point of view or from a deployment readiness point of view, but to ensure compelling performance and security of these deployments. Now, strategic alliances and partnerships would be the key to be able to work in such large ecosystems. So, testers would get more and more aware of the various potential tools and environments that are out there rather than looking at always in-house. Now, in addition to these alliances and partnerships, there would be a lot of need to focus on in-house R&D, building various frameworks, bringing various innovations like we discussed earlier across not just strategies and processes, but including tools that would enable leveraging some of these tools in a unique way to differentiate their own services and their own deployment tests. There would also be need to look at more and more of industry-specific solution accelerators while digital continues to play across various industries, bringing value in each of these segments. We see clear industry-specific accelerators, let's say, for example, within banking, within retail, within resources, each of these accelerators enabling the in-house frameworks. And the key would be to collaborate across various these standard defining bodies and contributing to these test specifications such that overall as an ecosystem we can ensure the challenges of the digital connected world are met. Now you'll see a lot more of the Digital Month campaign coming up. This link should go live tomorrow. You should see not many of these content coming up there. With that, Aradhana, I would want to open this up for questions if there are any questions from the audience.
Yes, thanks for the insightful presentation. Let's quickly take up the questions now as you have mentioned. I request you to read out the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to your insights. So are you able to see the questions coming into you?
Yes, I see questions coming in now. So what is crowd testing? So let me take that, and feel free to add in if I miss out something. So the way we see crowd testing is, pretty much it's no more a new term. It's been there for a few years now, enabling people outside the given project. We'll try kind of draw a broader picture. For example, within an organization, you could have a product or a solution go live within the next few weeks, and you want to get a feel for its behavior or end user experience across various geographies, across various networks. There is now several platforms where you can engage testers available outside, not just within the organization, but outside your organization as well. So that's primarily what we mean by crowd testing. Any tools recommended for future automation is the question that I see. Not sure if you were specific to any area that you were talking about, but in general, to talk about automation, like I said, what we are now looking at is not just automate in terms of execution, but we are seeing quite a lot of innovative tools which would automate the test creation process itself. For example, digest the given requirement spec, consider all the use cases of a user, and come up with various test scripts that are automatically generated a tester should consider. And then as a next step, further apply real-time analysis of these test cases to look at, for example, the impact areas of a feature or impact area of a release that's coming through, and prioritize some of the high-risk testing automatically. Venu, would you like to add anything around that in terms of tools recommended for automation?
Yeah, so I think the question on tools recommended for automation, when we were looking at testing devices, then there was a very specific need of what needs to be addressed in terms of automation. When we started looking at mobile applications, then it grew into a lot more in terms of complexity. When you see the complexity comes from can these scripts be used to test on multiple platforms? Can you use these to test by remote access? Is it possible to automate performance tests and so on and so forth? and what kind of implications does it have on the back ends, because data is secure and things like that. So automation tools, many of you may be familiar. Almost every month we find a new solution coming up, whether it is to address remote testing, automation in remote context, looking at different platforms, support for various platforms, and the ability to sort of integrate with other tools, including, let's say HP's unified test solutions with IBM's and test management tools and so on and so forth. So there are loads of such tools. It's very difficult to so the good the high-end, high-performing organizations constantly keep looking at everybody that's bringing up new options, and sort of you need to take a decision based on what the objective of the overall test strategy is. So that's that's the complexity that comes from mobile applications. But if you look at now the fact that you need to test for the interoperability of an application on a device with a point of sale, then you need to integrate a different set of tools that include the ones that can interoperate with a point of sale device as well. So in the digital world, this takes a completely much larger perspective. So it's going to be a lot more difficult, and it's going to be a long while before there are some standard solutions that are available. But it's important to stay in touch with how technology is moving in this space.
Yeah, I see quite a lot of questions coming up. We'll try and answer as many of them. So there's a follow-up question on the crowd testing itself. How is crowd testing different from alpha or beta testing? Good question, Maxim. So the way I would define it is, while crowd can be leveraged to do alpha and beta testing, traditionally a lot of these alpha and beta tests were done in the field by the test experts within the organization, within that specific project team. What we are talking about is enabling the solution such that people outside this project within the organization, or people beyond your organization, can also get engaged in contributing effectively for alpha and beta testing for a corresponding reward for that set of tests that they would do. So that's primarily, I would say, the definition. Another question is, what about the scope of mobile automation testing in the future? So Divan, I mean, we definitely see this continuously growing. If you see from an IT spend point of view, 2007, about 300 billion was the overall IT spend of an overall global IT spend. Today, simply the same 300 billion is the size enterprises spend on applications. So just that the explosion of these mobile applications would also mean quality deployment of these applications across devices, across networks, across varying environments, interfacing with various types of backends. So it definitely means significant amount of testing, and automation is the approach to be able to deploy these faster across so many different combinations. Another question is how testing ensures security of confidential data of e-commerce sites and social media. Arup, very useful question. I'll just give you, in the interest of time, a very short answer. In terms of traditionally, we've seen a lot of these e-commerce deployments, a lot of the tests getting done in isolation. For example, the payment gateways would get tested separately. The interface would, the web-based interface would get tested separately. The mobile apps would get tested separately. So would be the social media and various other interfaces. We started seeing innovations where all of these are put together using certain frameworks such that they can be tested together as an environment right during the development stage, which means a lot faster deployment of these e-commerce sites, not just from a functionality point of view, but also from a security point of view. Another question, Aradhana, do you think we have time for one more question?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So sorry, I'm just looking back to the scope of test. So how we can relate BI testing in digital world. Venu, do you want to share something on the analytics in terms of testing in the digital world?
Yeah.
So
when we look at testing from purely from mobile applications perspective, that's probably what we've been focusing on. But when we look at how do digital diagnostics come into play, how do we use multivariate testing? I think that's the way to go in terms of business intelligence testing. So there are a lot of solutions that are coming up and evolving around predictive analysis, cross-browser validation and stuff that together as a combination help to increase the ability of a product or a service in terms of improving the uplift in the market. So there is a lot of scope to integrate several such solutions in the digital space. So it is quite an evolving area, and that's where a lot of focus is on today.
Yeah, I see one more question. How will it be beneficial for small organizations? So I presume you mean how will digital testing be significant for small organizations? Venu, do you want to share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there are two sides of this perspective. On one end, and there are several small organizations that we ourselves work with, where we have pointed solutions because of the fact that digital, like we defined earlier, is bringing together several technologies, several players into one solution. So it's impossible for a large organization to innovate on just about every end of technology. So there's a huge space for small organizations to innovate in niche areas. But again, when it becomes testing an end-to-end solution, it basically needs to be done in the context of a large system integrator where you are actually putting together several solutions into place. So small organizations can indeed develop a USP and a space for themselves by focusing on specific areas, whether it is remote testing of mobile applications, or in terms of security, or in terms of testing interoperability between devices, building solutions around that. And it's important for the larger test solution providers like Accenture to continue to work with such niche players and operate. So it is from a very niche solution perspective, there is a huge space for small players, but they need to work very closely with large enterprises when it comes to digital testing, digital solution.
Yeah, so we have one more question. What's the role of manual testers in digital world? So maybe let me share my point of view and hand over to Venu for his additional thoughts. Definitely, while automation continues to be the mantra simply because of the growing complexities and numbers, there is need for certain niche areas where experts, in terms of look at from a user experience point of view, look at from an audio quality point of view, look at from a various user experience point of view in terms of variables and stuff like that, there is continuing need to test manually. Also, a lot of times, simply because we are able to automate does not mean has to be automated. A lot of it really boils down to what is the final ROI or the value that we are generating as testers, like we spoke earlier, from an economic value point of view. So given that there continues to be a significant role for specialists, be it manual testers or automated testers, with the growing need to learn across these various standards and interfaces. When if you would want to add something more for that.
Yeah, absolutely. In our experience, we've seen that the amount of testing that needs to be done and the ability to automate is still limited. It's impossible for you to look at a really significantly large part of the test spec being automated. So there is a huge need this continues to remain a need for manual testing, and it will remain. And more importantly, security, for example, testing on hacking, the ability to keep the backend secure. There is that side of things continues to remain focused on specialists who have to test. And there are several solutions where you have about, let us say, only 60% of automation that's possible, and the rest of the 40% is a huge number of tests that need to be still done. There is a lot of, and we spoke about crowd testing, and crowd testing is really being looked at as an attractive proposition simply because there is a need for manual testers, niche players, the ability to think of various ways in which user scenarios can come up. It's impossible for a test architect or anyone to use the business intelligence and the requirement spec to generate all the possible test scenarios that we need. So manual testing will continue to remain a large part of test scope in the digital world.
Yeah, I have one more interesting question from Murugan, which probably a lot of us on the call would be interested in. So Venu, if you would want to pick this suggestion to senior test experts to change over to the digital side.
So if I understand, talking about, say, if you senior testers, should they move on to the digital side? It's basically one is, as a senior tester, let's say you're a senior tester on the device side, and you have built a lot of niche expertise on radio technologies, for example, or if you're a mobile application tester and you have built niche skills in mobile applications. So you can continue to remain a specialist in your area as long as it falls within the perspective of what digital encompasses. So so senior testers can choose to remain focused as technology evolves into 4G, as mobile applications evolve into using several other features on the device, and so on and so forth. But it does not mean, unlike in the past, when you need to move from one to the other, then you need to sort of give up on what you had as a specialist. So as we just said, digital means bringing together all that has matured. So senior testers have built a lot of expertise in their own vertical, and that will find its application across. So by the fact that a senior tester going digital will basically mean that he needs to understand everything else, at least at a certain level, in terms of, let us say, a mobile application tester understanding the analytics, the user experience, and the interactive side of things, understanding a little bit about testing that has to happen on the cloud, so that he's able to integrate his own test solutions, deliver user scenarios that takes into consideration everything else on the digital ecosystem. So senior testers can continue to focus on their own areas of specialization as long as it is being encompassed by digital, but it will be important for him to understand everything else that his own technology is influencing.
Yeah. One more question is, can you please give a brief about test management responsibilities on digital side? This is from Murugan. Venu, would you want to share?
Oh, you want me to take that? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that there is something very different from how test management is done in larger applications and even in the context of mobile applications. So test management continues to play a very similar role, except for the fact that when you bring all several technologies together, testing devices, testing backends, testing applications have in some sense evolved a certain approach for themselves. So there is a need to integrate all of this into test management. So there will be challenges which have to evolve over time. But I don't think it's going to be it's going to be a complex thing from what currently test management being done by several tools will continue to be used. Features are being evolved on several such test management tools. So I don't think digital would pose an additional challenge per se, but it will definitely have some loose ends when there are several technologies. The test management that you would follow when you want to test a device in a system as compared to mobile application or larger applications, there are very subtle differences, but it's not too heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, if I may add a couple of other areas where we would see is, for example, a lot more collaboration with multiple tooling vendors, what probably was not so much so in the traditional systems where pretty much the same tools would continue for a long time. But here, not just the changing tools, but the number of tools that one given project would get engaged into, or a lot many. That's one area that I can think of. Additionally, I can think of most of the digital projects are more and more agile approaches, which means a lot more collaborations, a lot more close working across the teams than maybe some of the traditional test management systems where a test phase could be handled separately. Now, another question is, what's the best way to use crowd testing for applications, given the fact that application testing requires domain knowledge? This is from Javed. So Javed, if I may suggest at least a couple of approaches that we see is, there is a clear way where one can distinguish between the core areas of testing where, let's say performance aspects, or let's say very niche areas of the user experience part. These would probably be difficult to kind of look at from a crowd testing point of view, but let's say there's need to do functionality testing across various form factors, across various OS versions and browsers, for example. These could be something, the basic tests all could be done in-house to ensure certain level of maturity, certain level of sanctity, and then leverage the crowd to bring in the simple things like rendering across different resolutions and stuff like that. So wherever there is a need, you feel the end user is going to experience that from a usage point of view, it all boils down to, can you leverage the crowd and identify these issues even before it goes live? Also, another question from Prakash on how do we ensure the interoperability with different tools and platforms in digital testing world? Well, I think, Prakash, it's a very broad question. I'll try to give you my perspective. So one, definitely from an interoperability point of view, we see interfaces in terms of the specifying as specified by the standards, interfaces with, let's say, each of the platforms when especially software is provided as an application and they're leveraging various APIs of a system, interoperability from that perspective. And let's say there could be certain various access devices which are coming in the future and yet being ensuring the system is ready for that. So primarily we see interoperability lot to do lot to ensure from a perspective of each of these accesses well tested from a field deployment point of view. Venu, if you want to add any more of your thoughts on interoperability with.
So when it's about interoperability of tools, there is definitely a lot of challenge, simply because of the very size of digital. So testing interoperability predominantly between different devices on different operating systems. Right now, interoperability of devices that for example is on Android-based devices may not be very difficult, but then we have to look at testing of interoperability of tools on testing mobile payments, testing let us say fare management and stuff. Then a lot of tailoring has to be done. in terms of the tools that you need to use. And we see that to test a large solution, whether it is for a retail company, then there are several devices, there are several backend systems. Then there have been instances where you bring together at least 10 to 12 such tools together to be able to test interoperability across the whole end-to-end system. So it is interoperability and the bringing together tools is going to be a challenge, and it needs to be it will evolve over time.
Due to time
I
constraints.
still see a handful of you. Yeah.
Yes, I'm really sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
No, sorry, Arun. I was just saying I still see a handful of questions, but since we are already on the top of the hour, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for joining this session. Hopefully, it has opened up a few more areas to think on.
Yes, coming to that, I was just mentioning due to time constraint, I have to request you to take the unanswered questions offline, which I will share with you through email. So there are a lot of questions coming in from the attendees. If you would like to sum up the session for today, you can do it now.
Sure. Venu, you want to go first?
Yeah. Yeah. So first, thanks everyone for joining. And just as we see so many questions coming in, honestly, this is an evolving space, as we can all see it. And there was a question on what does it make for a senior tester. So it is there are senior testers bringing up, whether it is testers from the device-based, testers coming in from testing the cloud, testers coming in from testing mobile applications, and bringing them all together and understanding the new aspects that digital is opening up is going to be an exciting space. And all of us individually will not have all the answers, but collectively it's an interesting space to be in. And most certainly, given the growth which we shared in the beginning, this is something that as testers we can look forward to a very exciting future, especially in a firm within Accenture, where we deal with large enterprises going digital, engaging with us in terms of looking at bringing together their whole digital transformation. So we are already seeing that it is being a challenge, and it's an interesting time to be in. So I'm sure there will be a lot of questions, and answering them and it will all help us also evolve in our own careers as test engineers and testers. So thanks very much for joining, and look forward to a lot of exciting times in the digital space.
Back to you, Aradhana.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody.
And I'm really thankful to our guest speakers today for conducting this wonderful webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of the webinar will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Venugopal, for taking the time out and having us. I hope you have a great evening ahead.
Thank you, Aradhana. Thank you, everybody. Bye.